Welcome to today's Explainer. For decades, the history books have essentially sold us this one very specific, very neat story, that the Soviet Union fell in 1991 and the Cold War definitively ended. Okay, let's dive into this, because today we're unraveling the widespread illusion that global rivalry just kind of evaporated overnight.
Which brings us to a really central mystery. Did the Cold War actually end in 1991? Well, the research we're examining suggests that the global rivalry never actually stopped. Actually, scratch that. It didn't stop, it transformed. Instead of two superpowers just stockpiling nuclear weapons and pointing them at each other, the competition morphed. It evolved into this incredibly complex, modern race over artificial intelligence, computer chips, cyber capabilities, space tech, trade, and of course, global influence. So here is our roadmap for today. First, the original Cold War. Second, a different kind of rivalry. Third, tech, the new battlefield. Fourth, economic and military fronts. And finally, managing the future.
All right, part one, the original Cold War, setting the baseline.
Let's rewind a bit. In the immediate aftermath of World War II, back in 1945, the United States and the Soviet Union emerged as undisputed global superpowers. But rather than fighting each other directly, they spent the next 4 decades locked in a deeply tense standoff. We're talking military alliances, proxy conflicts, espionage, and amassing literally tens of thousands of nuclear warheads. It kept the whole world on a constant, terrifying edge. And then we hit 1991, the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Many confidently believed this era of massive global rivalry had just ended for good. But history had other plans.
And this brilliantly illustrates how massive the shift between these two eras really is. On the left side, between 1945 and 1991, you had rigid ideology, nuclear deterrence, and a literal iron curtain dividing completely isolated economies. Fast forward to today on the right, and the focus is all on AI and cyber warfare. But the biggest difference? Deeply connected global trade. Today's rival nations are heavily, undeniably intertwined. Moving right along to Section 2, a different kind of rivalry, the pivot to the present.
You're going to hear this term a lot in academic papers and policy discussions, the new Cold War. Analysts use this phrase to describe our modern strategic competition, encompassing technology, cybersecurity, and global influence. Now, it's important to note impartially here that while a lot of researchers rely on this framework, others argue the comparison kind of has its limits, because unlike the original Cold War, today's rival nations actually rely on each other. It's a total paradox. You have competing global powers that are literally building each other's tech components and sharing massive supply chains. There's simply no single curtain keeping them apart anymore.
Okay, Section 3, Tech, the new battlefield. Let's do our first deep dive. Modern power is measured in microchips. So, the crucial point is that global dominance isn't just about who builds the most tanks or missiles anymore. It's about who manufactures the most advanced semiconductors. Think about it. A single supply chain bottleneck for these microscopic, nanometer-scale chips could literally paralyze a nation's military and tech sectors overnight. The geopolitical weight of where and how these chips are made absolutely cannot be overstated.
Researchers generally identify 4 key technological arenas where this new rivalry is playing out. First up is advanced semiconductor manufacturing. Second is artificial intelligence, an arena where the staggering cost of developing massive language models is now treated as a critical national security investment. Third, cybersecurity defenses, which addresses the quiet, daily cyber skirmishes happening right now on our digital borders. And fourth, space exploration and satellites. Countries are pouring incredibly heavy investments into these areas because technological leadership directly dictates economic growth and national security. You just cannot separate the two.
Which leads us to Section 4, economic and military fronts, expanding the competition.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how governments are simultaneously managing economic and military priorities as part of one giant grand strategy. On the economic side, there's this frantic scramble to strengthen domestic manufacturing and secure vital energy and rare earth minerals. Take the sudden global push to secure lithium for electric vehicles, right? That isn't just an industrial shift, it's a direct move on a giant geopolitical chessboard. And at the exact same time, military modernization continues globally. We're seeing the development of hypersonic missiles, AI-assisted command systems, and expanded naval presence. Everyday economic decisions now carry profound military consequences.
And defense experts have come to a pretty striking realization about this new landscape. To quote the consensus, today's deterrence also includes digital infrastructure and cyber resilience, not only conventional military power. Unlike the original Cold War, where deterrence mostly meant the threat of physical weapons, modern security relies just as much on protecting a nation's power grid, its banking system, and its internet access from devastating, invisible cyber attacks.
Finally, Section 5. Managing the future. The path forward.
As we've seen, we live in a massive paradox. On one hand, we have this fierce strategic competition for tech, secure supply chains, and military modernization. But flip the coin, and even the fiercest geopolitical rivals are absolutely forced to cooperate on vital global issues like climate research, public health, and international trade. These two realities, competition and cooperation, literally have to exist side by side. Let's move on and see how this builds into actionable steps. Scholars argue that to safely manage this era, there are 3 essential tools for stability. Step 1, maintain active diplomacy. Step 2, keep those communication channels open. And Step 3, uphold international agreements to prevent escalation. Maintaining this ongoing dialogue is absolutely critical. In an interconnected world moving at the speed of AI, clear communication is often the only thing preventing a catastrophic misunderstanding from spiraling into an unintended conflict. Which leaves us with a vital question to ponder. Will history repeat itself, or take a completely different path? The original Cold War was defined by the looming shadow of nuclear weapons. But this new era, it's shaped by the microchips in our cars, the code in our banks, and the digital infrastructure we rely on every single day. The competition to shape that future has already begun. So the real question is, who is going to write the rules? Keep learning, keep questioning, and thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.